Hey there, sixth graders. And in this video today, we are going to go through and talk about how we know the number of protons, electrons, and neutrons that are in an element, which then make up all of our different elements on the periodic table. So remember from last time we talked about that all atoms have the same structure with the nucleus in the center and the electron cloud around it. And every single atom has that structure. But if atoms make up everything that we have on our Earth, that means there must be different atoms. And so there are different types of atoms. And specifically, those different types of atoms are called elements. And the difference between one element to the next is in this question here that's on your screen. How many protons, electrons, and neutrons are in that atom? Okay, so you have your piece of paper. We're going to go through, and the video will pause itself to help you kind of pace yourself as you go through the video. Here we go. On the periodic table, we have over 118 elements. Actually, we have 118 elements. One of them here on the screen is krypton. Every single element has what we call an element block or a square that gives us information about the element. But you need to know what those numbers represent. And that's what this video is about today. So let's start with the atomic number. So the atomic number is usually located somewhere towards the top of the box. And on the box that I'm showing of the element krypton here on your screen, it's the number 36. At the bottom is usually the atomic mass of the object, so how much that atom weighs. Now the weight is in a special unit called an atomical mass unit, an AMU. Don't need to know that. What we need to know is what that atomic mass, where they came up with that number. So for krypton, we see that it's this number 83.798. Well, the atomic number, as we've talked about a couple times already in class, is the number of protons that are in the nucleus of an atom. And that's almost more important than any of these other numbers, because that number, the number of protons, identifies that atom. 36 protons in the nucleus only happens if it's krypton. If it's different than 36, it's no longer krypton. That is not the case if the electrons change or if the neutrons change. It's only the protons that matter. And we did that in that lab together with that sim lab, where you saw that happen and play out for you in that lab. So how do you know how many electrons there are? There's only two numbers on this element block, so what tells you how many electrons there are? Well, you have to remember that all of the elements on the periodic table are in a neutral state. Okay? They are neutral. That means they have no overall charge. They're not positive, nor are they negative. They're neutral. They have no charge. No charge. Well, for that to happen, if you have positive protons in the nucleus and negative electrons floating around in the electron cloud, that must mean that you have to have equal number of protons to neutrons. I'm sorry, protons to electrons. Protons to electrons. Okay, so atoms must have equal number of protons and electrons. The number of protons must equal the number of electrons, which then means if the atomic number is 36, meaning that there's 36 protons, you know that in an atom of the element krypton, there also has to be 36 electrons. Well, what about the number of neutrons then? Well, here's where the atomic mass comes in. And this is probably the hardest part of all this because there's some math. Dun, 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 math, right? But it's not hard math. It's just subtraction, so we can handle this. So the atomic mass that we see for krypton there is 83.798. It's down here at the bottom. We have to round that to the nearest whole number so that we get rid of decimals. So you look, 83.7 would round to 84. So the atomic mass is rounded to the nearest whole number. So the atomic mass of krypton is 84. The number of neutrons that is in the element then has to do with the number of protons and the number of neutrons. And that's what's going to make our atomic mass. So that second bullet point here on your document says for us to find out the number of neutrons, then we got to do a little bit of subtraction. We know what the atomic mass is, 84, because we rounded 83.7 to 84. We know how many protons there are. because there are 36. The atomic number tells us that. So that means if we subtract the atomic mass minus the number of protons, that will get us, bum, 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 the number of neutrons. So the atomic mass minus the protons equals the number of neutrons. So the atomic mass of krypton, if you look at it, we would do this. You take 84, because that's rounded to 84. You subtract 36, because that's how many protons are in there, because that's what the atomic number tells us. 84 minus 36 is 48. So that means in krypton there are 48 neutrons. So just from looking at this box alone, we know how many protons are in the nucleus, 36. We know the atomic mass is 84. And we know that the atomic mass is the combination of protons and neutrons. So if you have the atomic mass, you subtract the number of protons. 84 minus 36 gets us 48. We also know the number of electrons because the number of electrons is equal to the number of protons. That's because the atoms on the periodic table, the elements on the periodic table, have no charge. They're neutral. So the number of protons equals the number of electrons. This is the document we're going to work on next in class, and it's going to review some of this and have you practice it here in class together. You're going to show me your completed notes here for participation for today's class. Keep this in your science binder. Have a good day.